Hey, what's going on, guys? This is the SS Ultimate Goku back with another video, and today I am going to be doing my predictions on this year's NFL Hall of Fame predictions of 2018. I have the list of the finalists that have been chosen, the main finalists for the final cut. That will be announced tonight, the day before the Super Bowl. Um, Now, this is my personal predictions and who I actually believe should be in the Hall of Fame. Now, the way this works is obviously the modern era finalists. There's five or up to five that can be put into the Hall of Fame. There's also two senior candidates that can be added into the Hall of Fame, which can add up to a total of seven. They also, I think, have contributors, but I don't know if there's any contributors up for a ballot. There's one. So there could be up to eight, I think. That's how it works. Because there's a contributor finalist. They just recently added that. So I have the list here of everyone that's eligible. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go through the list and I'm gonna pick the five modern day ones. Because that's how it works. There's five modern days after his 20 years of eligibility, then they go into finalists. It takes 5 years for you to be eligible from the time you retire. And then you have 20 years to get in, basically, before then you become a senior candidate, which is a completely different, separate list. So they weeded this down from 108 nominees, which was weeded down to 27. And then it was weeded down, I think, to 15. So, yeah. 15 finalists to compare 18 finalists under the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Two senior candidates were announced in August 2017. The reviews don't qualify for those players until ends of more than 25 years, so these guys are obviously old-timers. And then there's also the contributor finalists. Surprisingly enough, there is no head coach eligible, which to me, I have no idea how Jimmy Johnson is not a Hall of Famer. How is he not a Hall of Famer before Jerry Jones? He's the reason why Jerry Jones is even relevant in 2018 because, I mean, he won the Super Bowls for Jimmy Johnson, the one in '95. I mean, that he didn't win that one because he had left by that point. But I mean, the players that played for the other head coach frickin' were Jimmy Johnson's players. So Jimmy Johnson is way better than Tony Dungy. Dungy only won the Super Bowl because of Peyton Manning. Okay, I mean that's a fact. Tony Dungy had a horrible defense in Indianapolis. But yet somehow he's a Hall of Famer. I don't understand the logic of how he's a Hall of Famer over someone like Jimmy Johnson who actually built a dynasty, and yet Jerry Jones gets into the Hall of Fame last year, which was a bunch of bull crap that he got in the Hall of Fame before like someone like Art Modell. I know a lot of Cleveland fans don't like Art Modell, but he actually helped the league. He's the one who created Monday Night Football and shit like that. Like Art Modell is more deserving than Jimmy Johnson, or not Jimmy Johnson, I'm sorry, Jerry Jones. But Jimmy Johnson should be in the Hall of Fame, and he's not on this list, which annoys me. So the first year eligibilities, like the first people, this is their first year of trying to get in, is Steve Hutchinson, Ray Lewis, Randy Moss, Brian Urlacher, and Everson Walls. I think that's how you say it. Okay, so then those are the first ballots, or the not first ballot. Those are the first year of eligibilities. Then we're gonna just go through the full list here. You got Tony Brissett, Isaac Bruce, Brian Dawkins, Alec Flanagan, Steve Hutchinson, Joe Jacoby, Edgerrin James, Ty Law, Ray Lewis, as we said earlier, John Lynch, Kevin. I don't know how to say his last name. Mwaki. He was a center, I guess. Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Brian Urlacher, and Everson Walls. Okay. So those are the 15 modern day Hall of Fame eligibilities. Then for the two senior candidates, you got Robert Brazile. I think that's how you say it. And then you got my boy Jerry Kramer right here, who I'm going to get to him in a second because obviously I'm a huge Green Bay Packers fan. And then for the contributor finalists, we got Bobby Brethren something. I have never heard of this guy, but he was on the Kansas City Chiefs when they actually were relevant and winning, he was a general manager, I guess, in '69 for the Chiefs when they won the Super Bowl. He also won a Super Bowl with the Dolphins in '72 and '73. He also helped the Redskins, surprisingly, win a Super Bowl in '83 before ending his career in 1999 with the Chargers. Isn't the guy who wasn't he the guy who that drafted Ryan Leaf? I think he was. But he won a lot of, or he was on a lot of the teams that won Super Bowls. So I guess I can see that. We'll see what happens with him. Okay, so we're going to go through the modern guys and who I think is going to get in out of the 5. So out of the first ballot Hall of Famers, or not first ballot Hall of Famers, I'm saying first eligibility Hall of Famers, the only one who I see getting in this year is Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis, obviously, slam dunk Hall of Famer. Way he went out. And if you're going to pick between two linebackers, I'd pick Ray Lewis over Brian Urlacher any day of the week. So I'm going to pick Ray Lewis on that. So that's my first guy to get in. Now we're going to go through wide receivers because we have a few wide receivers. We have Terrell Owens. We have Randy Moss, who's first-year eligibility. We have Isaac Bruce. Now, the wide receiver position is the most difficult position to pick for Hall of Famers because it's very hard to determine who is a Hall of Famer on a wide receiver because there's so many that are always eligible every year, and that's why so many people get snubbed at the wide receiver position. But me personally, if I had to pick between the 3, I'm picking Terrell Owens. Okay, Terrell Owens is the guy who I think is the wide receiver that's going to get into the Hall of Fame this year. He deserves it. He's better than Marvin Harrison, and Marvin Harrison got in, I think it was a year ago, right? He got in because he got in after 3 years of his eligibility, which I think was a crock of shit because Terrell Owens had better numbers than Terrell Owens had better numbers than Marvin Harrison. Fact. That is a fact. Okay. And Marvin Harrison got in before him. And the only reason why Marvin Harrison got into the Hall of Fame before Terrell Owens is because Terrell Owens was a loudmouth and Marvin Harrison wasn't. I guarantee you, if the roles were reversed and they had the same stats, Terrell Owens would have got in before Marvin Harrison, because Marvin Harrison is quiet. He doesn't really talk. He talked that much. He didn't really celebrate that much when he got touchdowns. That's the only reason why he got in before him. It's the only freaking reason. Like, Marvin Harrison had Peyton Manning his whole career. He had Peyton freaking Manning. Terrell Owens had Jeff Garcia. He had Donovan McNabb. He had Tony Romo. Like, you know, I mean, he had Steve Young in the beginning of his career, but he only had him for like, what, 4 seasons? That was towards the end of Steve Young's career. Like, freaking, Randy, or not Randy, I'm sorry, Marvin Harrison had like, who? Like, freaking, like, Peyton Manning his whole career. And I think Marvin Harrison benefited more to Peyton Manning than Peyton Manning benefited to Marvin. Because after Marvin left, Peyton Manning did great without him. Like, his numbers, like, skyrocketed. But like, he had Pierre Garçon, that Super Bowl when they went with the when they lost to the Saints. Like, he had a dominating season. Marvin Harrison wasn't on that team, and he had Reggie Wayne. He had freaking Pierre Garçon. Pierre Garçon's never going to get in the Hall of Fame. Okay? Like, and he had a monster. Peyton Manning had a monster season without Marvin Harrison. So I would argue that Marvin Harrison benefited more to having Peyton Manning his whole career than freaking Terrell Owens, who had to play with different quarterbacks. Yeah, he gets in before him. You know. So Terrell Owens, I think, will be the wide receiver who gets in. So we got Ray Lewis, and then we got Terrell Owens. Again, this is my personal prediction, by the way, not necessarily how it's going to go, but this is who I think should get in / my prediction. So we got a few cornerbacks in here and safeties. I'm just going to put cornerbacks and safeties in at the same time because I don't think they're going to put a cornerback and a safety in together. So you got Brian Dawkins, you got John Lynch, who's a free safety, currently the general manager of the 49ers, by the way. And then you got a couple cornerbacks here. In Everson, I don't really remember him. And then you got Ty Law. I'm going to go with, if we're putting them all in the same category, I'm going to go with John Lynch. John Lynch was part of that dominating Super Bowl team in 2002 with the Bucs. They had a great defense. You know, you already got Warren Sapp in the Hall of Fame. You already got Derek Brooks in the Hall of Fame. I think they need to put John Lynch in there because that's the three. Those were really the three centerpieces to that 2002 defense for the Bucs that won the Super Bowl. I think you got to put that. I think you got to put him in before Dawkins, as well as these other cornerbacks. Ty Law, I'm kind of mixed on Ty Law. Like, Ty Law, he was a dominating cornerback, but after he left New England, you know, yeah, he had a Pro Bowl season with the 1 year he was with the Jets, but then he had a real mediocre 2 seasons with Kansas City. It wasn't even funny. And then he kind of ended his career like not really no one noticing him in Denver in 2009. So I'm along on a fence with Ty Law. And the thing is, a lot of those New England teams, it's going to be really hard to judge which of those teams actually had Hall of Fame players because a lot of that was Bill Belichick and Tom Brady that really carried those teams. So it's going to really be hard to determine which one of those Patriots are Hall of Famer. I would say Teddy Bruschi probably should be a Hall of Famer, but Ty Law, I'm kind of a little from the fence on if he's a Hall of Famer or not. So I'm not sure about him. So that's our third one. So we got 3 now. So now I'm looking at we got some guards and tackles that are eligible and centers. I am going to say if we're only putting one guard in, or guard, tackle, center, whatever, pretty much they're for the most part the same. It's, you know, just the way they approach it is different. If I'm going to have to say on one of these guys, I'm going to say Alex Flanagan. The guard for the Steelers for a long time. And then he was for the Jets for a couple of years, and then he finished off with the Cardinals. In all his seasons, he was pretty dominant. Once he left Pittsburgh, he was still dominant. Even when he ended with the Cardinals, I thought he was pretty good. He went to the Pro Bowl multiple times. So I'm gonna say Alex Flanagan will be the guard that gets in. So now that's 4. That's 4 we have. We need to pick one more. So obviously we kind of went through everyone here. Everyone position. And there's one guy we didn't mention, and that's the running back, the only running back that's eligible for this year's Hall of Fame, and that's Edgerrin James. And we're going to talk about him. He's not my pick right now. I just want to say that, but I'm only going to talk about him because we haven't mentioned him yet, and that's Edgerrin James. He was a Colt running back for a long time. He had tremendous numbers, benefiting with Peyton Manning, complimenting him. Not many people really looked at Edgerrin James that much because you had Peyton Manning's high-powered passing game. So Edgerrin James kind of was a little lost in those Colt years, but he was definitely a dominant running back. You needed a good running back if you were a passing team like that, because everyone's going to cover the pass, and then when you run it, no one's going to expect it. When he went to the Cardinals, the first year he was pretty good, but then he started to slowly not do as good. In 2008, he did help out for the playoff run. But in 2008, in the regular season, his season was really diminished. Except for the playoff run when they went for the Super Bowl against the Steelers. He finished off in 2009 with the Hawks. Not really people really remember that season for him. It's going to be a really tough call for Edgerrin because Edgerrin, again, his best years were in Indianapolis, which he was playing with a high-powered offense in Peyton. So not many people really looked at his numbers that well. So yeah, that's the whole thing with Edgerrin. So we have 4 people so far. So now we can go through and really decide on the list right here of who is the other guy who we think will get in, in terms of maybe a second position or what have you. And the guy who I think will get in as the 5th member of the Hall of Fame, I'm thinking Brian Dawkins. I know some people will think, well, why not a wide receiver? Why not try to put 2 wide receivers in so we can, have less wide receivers in for next year? But you got to put in who's the best guy available, and I think it's Dawkins. They have put in 2 positions in the Hall of Fame before, so I think they're going to put Brian Dawkins in with John Lynch. Obviously, John Lynch, I think, would get the knob over Dawkins, but I think Dawkins will be the second. I think they're going to have 2 safeties. I don't know if they've ever had 2 safeties in the Hall of Fame before for the same class, but I think they're going to do it this year over having 2 wide receivers or having a running back in. Edgerrin, it's tough to say that he's a Hall of Famer, really. Honestly, I don't even know why Edgerrin James is in the top 15. I think Priest Holmes is eligible, like, for the Hall of Fame too, isn't he? Like, why isn't Priest Holmes eligible? Like, Priest Holmes, had some pretty good numbers until he got knocked out. So I mean, with Edgerrin, I don't know. With Edgerrin, his best years, was with Peyton, and that's going to be kind of tough to sell for me, at least. So those are my candidates. Ray Lewis being the only first-year eligibility to get in. Terrell Owens, John Lynch, Alex Flanagan, and Brian Dawkins. Those are going to be the 5 that I pick for the modern day Hall of Famers. And then now we're going to move on to the senior candidates. Now we can pick 2 here. I'm going to talk about Jerry Kramer first because I can't just dissent my dissent here. Obviously, I'm a huge Green Bay Packers fan. Now, Jerry Kramer was before my time, way before my time. He played in the 60s, for God's sakes. Okay, but I have researched this guy. So Jerry Kramer, he kicked the game-winning field goal in the 1962 NFL Championship game, which was the Super Bowl back then, before the Super Bowl even existed. Okay, so Jerry Kramer kicked the winning field goal because back then guards and other positional people were kickers back then. Kicker wasn't like its only position back then. So back in the early 60s, you had kickers be played as like guards or running backs. Like they would be the kickers basically back then. And back then they were straight ahead kickers. So Jerry Kramer was a kicker for a while, and he kicked the winning field goal in the 1962 NFL Championship game, and that kind of gets lost in here. But not only that, but he made the most famous block. He made the most famous block in the 1967 NFL Championship game, which allowed Bart Starr to get that quarterback sneak to win the game against the Cowboys because they were down by 3. There was like 9 seconds to go. They had no timeouts. It was the last play of the game pretty much because they had no timeouts, so there was no way they could get the field goal people off in time to tie it up. So this was the last play of the game to win the game and win a 3rd NFL consecutive championship, which hadn't been done since like the 30s with the Green Bay Packers. So this is now because of what Jerry Kramer did, it's the only time that there was a three-peat. The Packers of the 60s three-peated 3 NFL straight championships because in 65 there wasn't a Super Bowl yet. 66 was the first year the Super Bowl was created. So they won the first 2 Super Bowls in 66 and 67, but they won the NFL championship games, the games before the Super Bowls, because you had to win the title game before you got to the Super Bowl, because that's how it worked until after 69, when they had the full merger in 1970. So you had to win the NFL championship games. So the Packers won 3 straight NFL championships, which that's a three-peat. That's the only time it's ever happened. And ever since the Super Bowl, ever since the full merger in 1970, there has not been one football team that has three-peated, that has won 3 consecutive championships. All right, they've won 2. There's teams that have won 2, but there hasn't been teams that have won 3 straight. That has never happened before. And only the Packers did that, and it was primarily due to Jerry Kramer's block in that 67 championship game that led to the three-peat, the last three-peat that has ever happened in modern football. So there was that. And not only that, Vince Lombardi, the great head coach, which, by the way, for any of you that haven't been living on a rock, the trophy is named after Vince Lombardi. The Super Bowl trophy is named after Vince Lombardi for a reason, might I add. Okay. Vince Lombardi said that Jerry Kramer was the greatest guard in the business. That should have put him in just alone from the greatest coach of all time. But not only that, there was a book that was made in the 60s, or maybe it was the 70s, I'm not sure, but it was made. And it was called I think it was either the late 60s or early 70s, but it was called the the best players for the first 50 years. So the first 50 years of the league. Now you got to remember, this is dating back from like 1965 to 1920 of who the best players are. Okay. Okay, so from 1920 to 1965, this book basically ranked the best players on the defense and offensive teams for the first 50 years of who the starters would be. Jerry Kramer was the guard. Jerry Kramer is the only starter in this book from the first 50 years of the NFL's league that is not in the Hall of Fame currently as we speak. Everyone else that started in this book is in the Hall of Fame except Jerry Kramer. I can't emphasize that anymore on why the frig Jerry Kramer should be in the Hall of Fame. Everyone views Jerry Kramer as a Hall of Famer. For some reason, he has not been a Hall of Famer in the NFL's Hall of Fame. Somehow, he has gotten past that. This guy should be in the Hall of Fame. And hopefully he will get in as a senior candidate, finalist here. It's basically it's different from the modern day candidates. The way it works for the senior finalists is it's either yes or no, basically. So hopefully Jerry Kramer gets a big yes and gets into the Hall of Fame this year. That's how it works for senior finalists. The next guy is Robert Brazile. He played for the Houston Oilers from the mid-70s to the early 80s. And the Houston Oilers are the modern-day Tennessee Titans, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know who the Houston Oilers are. The Houston Oilers moved to Tennessee in 1999 and became the Tennessee Titans. So he would get in as a Titan, actually, but they're calling him a Houston Oiler here. Will he get in? I don't know. I really don't know that much about this guy, actually. I'm going to be honest with you. He's not someone that, I know right away, especially since he's on a franchise that doesn't exist. Well, I mean, they exist, but they don't play in that city anymore. I'm going to say yes, just because lately the senior finalists have gotten in 9 times out of 10. So I'm just going to say yes, because they usually put them in, put both in. Well, no. They can put both senior candidates in. I've seen it happen. So I'm gonna say they're both gonna get in because they usually put both in, typically. So that's probably what's gonna happen. They're probably just gonna both be put in, and so then we're gonna get 7 Hall of Famers. Now for contributors, Bobby Brehen, I think I don't know if he'll get in. Like, I don't know if his contributing finalist counts towards senior candidates or not. But I'm gonna say he's gonna get in because it doesn't say specifically that he will take away a spot from the senior candidates. He won't take a spot away from the modern day candidates. So I'm gonna say he's gonna get in too. So that means we'll have 8 people that get in. We'll have 8 that gets in. So that's what I'm looking at right now. So here's my full list, okay, of my predictions. Okay, we got Ray Lewis, Terrell Owens, John Lynch, Faneca. I'm sorry, I think I got his name right this time. Alan Faneca. That's 4. And then Brian Dawkins is 5. Those are my moderns. Seniors, I'm going to say Jerry Kramer obviously is getting in because I'm a Packers fan, of course. Robert Brazile, sorry if I said his name wrong. And then, the contribute finalists, we'll put him in 2, so that's going to be 8. So 8 total. That's my full prediction list. You can comment down below who you guys will predict will get in. You can you all can predict who you all think will get in. Down below in the comment section. Comment, rate. If you like this video or my other videos, please subscribe. And that's about it, guys. I am the SS Ultimate Goku, and I'm out of here. Peace!